Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Mineral Resources Minister Susan Shabangu conducted the official opening of what is the fourth new black-controlled manganese mining development underway in South Africa's well-endowed Kalahari. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Can you tell us a bit more about Kudumane manganese mining project?
You know, one of the things that you notice when you go down to the Kalahari and you see these manganese projects, they're not like the normal mining black economic empowerment formula. They don't follow that formula. You know, we started with saying that blacks needed to have 14% of the company by 2010, which most companies have met, and then mining companies needed to take that to 26% by the time you reach 2014, which is still to come. You find that the black economic empowerment partners there are really controllers. They've got 51% or 50%. It's a much different formula. And these are all startups, some of them not so small. So it's interesting, you know, and if we look at those four, Kalahari, you know, that's really a black women-owned entity, you know, led by Daphne Mashili Nkosi, who was active during the old Soweto days, you know, the riots of 1976, June 1976, you know, the 16th. We still commemorate that day as Youth Day. Well, she was one of the youth, you know, pounding out there, and she got involved with detainees protection after, and all of a sudden you see her now as a manganese miner. And then, you know, the other one, Chipi, again, Saki Makazoma, former Robben Island prisoner, you know, now out, and the deputy chairman of Standard Bank, also in on the Mining Act. And again, it's black control. It's not just an empowerment exercise. So it's very transformational. And even, you know, the Ryhove Russian deal that was with the United Manganese of the Kalahari, again, it's the majority shareholding, the predominant shareholding is black. And now we come to Kudumane, the same sort of formula, where you see the new person, the new face emerge, Zwelakhe Sisulu. I mean, we know him as a former journalist. You know, he was a journalist on the Rand Daily Mail in the days when I was with the SAN Group, and he became the chairman he became the head of SABC, the South African Broadcasting Corporation, now very much into mining as well, and in platinum with Aquarius. And he is a leading player as chairman of Kudumane. Again, there's majority black control, two black companies involved, or two black economic empowerment companies. So if you drill down, you know, you'll find that this is made up of a lot of smaller companies as well, and community involvement, etc. So it's an interesting formula that is different, and it's all about this manganese startup, and it's about you know, making sure that we do better in the Northern Cape.
Now tell us about the funding for this project as well as its customers, and also how will any of the ore get to its customers?
Yeah, now this is an interesting partnership, because it's Asia Minerals Limited, and that is led by Hirotaka Suzuki, a very interesting entrepreneur. This is a privately held company, and you know, when I saw Hong Kong, I thought, well, China. No, this is Japanese owned, but operating out of Hong Kong. He's already got two manganese smelters in China. He's building another one in Malaysia, and he's now the 49% shareholder with the two black companies in the Northern Cape. And interestingly, even though he's got all the smelting capacity, you know, he's listened very carefully to the wishes of Susan Shabangu, our minister, who's saying, you know, beneficiate where you can, you know, take the value chain as far as you can. And he's talking about possibly putting a smelter inland, which is quite unusual, in the Northern Cape, because he wants to turn the lower grade manganese to account. One of the farms there have got lower grade manganese, and he wants to make sure that you know, they can transport that effectively. And if you uplift the value through smelting and you create an alloy, you know, the whole transport equation changes, because you are distributing a higher value product. Rail is a big issue, of course. They're negotiating intensely. Already they're conceding that initially some of it is going to have to go by road to Durban, which is abominable. You know, I mean, it shouldn't happen. It's very expensive, hard on the roads, far, and I think it's dangerous. You know, I couldn't confirm it, but I hear in the Northern Cape that a child has already been killed by one of the trucks. I hope it's not true, because this will be too ghastly to contemplate. But, Brian Malefi at Transnet is now saying definitely they're going to turn that line to Kucha into a heavy haul line. So the logistics are starting to build up. Of course, the bigger manganese companies, they say it's cheaper to go along the Saldanha line. So there's still that. There might be two routes, but I think the companies like Kudumane are quite happy with the heavy haul line going down to Kucha and exporting from that port. The whole basis of this now is that it's going to be a 40% equity. So all those people who are involved, all the shareholders, must put in 40% of that 1.5 billion, which is a heavy ask, and then the 60% coming from debt. That means you go to a bank and you get loans, and in this case I think it's Standard Chartered that's involved.
Now, manganese mining has been described as South Africa's saddest mining story, and Susan Shabangu has urged the mining companies in the Northern Cape not to leave the legacy at a standstill, the same as it was in Kimberley. Can you elaborate on what she mentioned?
Yeah, so she's in the same province. This is the Northern Cape. More than 100 years ago they discovered diamonds there. Fantastic opportunity for the world. We saw Cecil John Rhodes and the De Beers emerge, and a huge amount of wealth was created. And I still believe that that wealth came to Johannesburg, it came all around South Africa, so we can't complain too much. But she's saying if you go to the diamond fields today, she's not happy with what she sees. The mined out areas there, she said, was dominated by poverty and alcoholism. I hope that you can't link it too directly to the diamond mining, because diamond mining wouldn't like that sort of legacy. But she's saying, look, let's do something better. Let's make sure that we don't leave a legacy of that kind. That's why she pushes quite hard when it comes to adding value where you can. So, they're hoping to put a sinter plant so that they won't just be exporting ore as such, that they will try and add the manganese content to that ore, which again, involves skills and goes more wealth creation in the area. And if they do go ahead with the smelter, I think that they will be answering a good call. So the more you can add value in that area, the more jobs you're going to create, the more wealth you're going to create. So hopefully we will have a better legacy. But of course, these are risky ventures. You look at the manganese business at the moment, it's not one that people want to go into. But of course, that's the time that the entrepreneurs go in. When things are down, because now they're doing the building, now they're preparing for the upturn. And, if their timing's right, it's going to be fantastic. Then the price of manganese will be better, etc. And steel has got a very good outlook, and manganese goes into the steel, so it should be a good story. And when they say the saddest story, it's a twin thing. What some people commentate as a saddest story is that we've got this fantastic treasure trove of manganese in the Kalahari, but it hasn't meant that because we've got 80% of the high value manganese in the world, that we've got 80% of the world market. We've ended up with between 15 and 20% of the world market. Of course, with these new mines coming through now, it should be a bit higher. But it's not like we've got a dominant market share. The Chinese have still got a dominant market share, and they've got pathetically poor quality manganese. And that's why you see people who are in the know about manganese, they're heading one way, to the Kalahari. And that's why we've got these new mines coming through. And there's a lot more. And Minister Shabangu did concede that, anyone who hasn't used their mining rights properly, or their mining rights have lapsed, she sees that because she's the custodian of all the rights. The state is, so she's actually sitting on a lot more rights. And she's now saying that she's going to go about dealing with rights where the known value is on paper in a different way. And it might be through an auction process, not auction for cash, but so it won't be the highest bidder type thing, but the person that comes forward with the best proposition, their social and labour plan, what they're going to do in the area to sort of avoid ghost towns developing after the mines leave. So she's sitting in quite a powerful position. I could see the smile on her face. She's now holding on to all these rights that have lapsed, and some of them are in that area as well. Of course, they spread throughout the country. So it'll be interesting to see what the criteria are for the auction And she says that'll be published in the Government Gazette coming June, mid-year or July.
And I suppose there's also job creation opportunities. How many people do you think will be employed?
Well, on the job side, as the project goes ahead and it's in construction phase, it'll peak at about 500. So it's not a massive big mine. And then they will have about 200 to 300 people. And interestingly, the mine manager is Chabo Lataba. So he has had a lot of experience at Assmang's Black Rock mine. And one of the fascinating things is that he's a good squash player. He likes playing squash. It's because of that period he had belonging to the rec club at Black Rock in the same Northern Cape Kalahari area. So he's sort of very familiar with that, and no longer a member of that squash club, but you can see he's keen to put his squash dogs back on.
Well, it sounds fascinating. Thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.